Hey, hello, and welcome back to another episode from Tiny House and Off-Grid Resources. It's a lovely March day outside. It's the end of summer in New Zealand, and I would rather be outside building something or getting involved in some new project. But things are slowly packing in out there in the real world, and I'm finding it hard to get the things that I need to do the stuff that I do. A lot of people who live an ordinary life in a house, in a street, and have a job, they are a little bit insulated from these effects, and they might not notice what's actually going on. So just to make it a little easier for people to understand, I've just gone online and made a search. I've searched supply chain problems New Zealand, and then gone into the news filter, and I've come up with a series of articles here that are really sobering. If people aren't keeping an eye on the news, or if they're not directly involved in the manufacturing industry, they won't realise the broad effects that are already happening. New Zealand works hand in glove with China. We supply stuff to them, they in turn supply a lot of stuff to us. Because we're a very small country, we only get relatively small amounts of these products and services delivered at a time, which means if they stop, there's only a small amount in the country. And panic buying will have a very sudden effect. We could find ourselves without certain products within maybe a week if there was panic buying on those products. I've taken this in hand, and I've gone out and I've bought a year's worth of my most used consumable items. Those consumable items are food and toilet paper and medical supplies, but they are also items that allow me to continue with my work. Nails and screws, welding wire, glues, all that kind of thing. If the product itself doesn't come from China, the product that product is made from certainly does come from China. Even though New Zealand has its own manufacturing plants for steel and aluminium, so much steel and aluminium comes in from China to supplement it, because over the years our small manufacturing plants have never grown to keep up with demand. We're in the middle of a building boom, and stuff is getting used here just like crazy, and we depend on the boats and the shipping and China. I've been reading stories where everything from Audi cars through to medical supplies have been disrupted because of one ingredient or one small part that comes from China. For example, Audi in Germany. Their cars are built in Germany, their motors are built in Germany, but the sun visors, the seats, the door handles, the tail lights, they're all made in China, and they're not coming. You can't put a car out without sun visors, seats, tail lights. So the cars are sitting partially finished. The thousands of people who work in these industries have been laid off. I've got personal friends who work in primary industries here in New Zealand, people who work in the fruit exporting industry, the logging industry, dairy farming. They're finding that there's no market for their produce. They can't get it out of the country, therefore they can't produce it. It's pretty hard to stop a cow producing milk, it's pretty hard to stop a tree producing fruit. But that's the stage we're in. It means that very soon they're going to make the decision to empty out the cool stores and start putting it on New Zealand shelves at a reduced price. There will be opportunities for us to save $1 on certain items, but then there's going to be things that we don't have in New Zealand that are going to be at the other end of the scale. Things like coffee and sugar and spices and rice and pasta and wheat, bread. You know, we have a very small wheat industry here in New Zealand that can't possibly supply 4.8 million people with their daily bread. So we're going to have to be looking for alternatives, and oats is one, and oats is something that we can grow here down in Canterbury in the South Island quite successfully, so we might be eating a lot more oat bread. Things will change, that's for sure. I've opened up a screen on the computer here and done a search, and these are some of the headlines that I'm reading. Supply disruptions for New Zealand importers and exporters. Kiwi shops feel impact of global supply chain disruptions. Supply chain delays for New Zealand's Douglas Pharmaceuticals. I'd rather be in New Zealand than elsewhere. Why New Zealand is more exposed than other countries to the economic chills of China's outbreak. I don't want to use the word, because if I use the word, YouTube won't allow my videos to spread organically. You have to avoid certain keywords. New Zealand dairy supply ready for resumption of work in China. Supply disruptions to Fiji Islands. So that's just the first page. I presume that there are thousands of hits on the same subject. As I said when I started the video, people who work in a job, live in a street, in a house, pay a mortgage, they're insulated from this unless they take steps to actually research it. I've been noticing that the powers that be, the government talking heads who appear on screen, they're not giving us any help. All they are offering is control. They want us to not panic. They want us to not stock up. They want us to carry on as normal. None of that helps, because within a couple of weeks we will be where other countries that this has passed through were a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully we're not going to get as bad as Iran and Italy. Those two countries have proved that they've been ill prepared and they're suffering. England, for example, only has 15 beds available for people to be put into isolation for this kind of disease. That is nationwide. A country of something like 70 million people, they have 15 beds available. In America, there are counties buying motels so that they can use them as containment facilities. This is being handled badly by the powers that be. We need to take responsibility ourselves, because the people who are in charge are doing an awful. I don't know how bad things will get, but I do know that already there are supply chain problems. If these supply chain problems get worse, they'll affect more and more things more and more severely. Now, if it's toilet paper, cheese, butter and rice, we can find alternatives for those things. But when it comes down to heating, water, electricity, now I know that those things aren't supplied from overseas, but they are supplied using equipment and using resources that are sourced from overseas. If something breaks down and has to be replaced with an overseas part, they may have trouble getting it at all. If they do get it, there's bound to be delays in getting it here. If people are getting sick, there'll be less people to do the work. If people are being locked down, then there'll be paperwork and administration that has to be waded through before things can move from one place to another. I remember stories from when I was a youth of the war years. My parents went through the Second World War, and they told me about the austerity that they were forced to live with, how many things that they got used to simply weren't available anymore. Luckily, I don't live in England anymore. I live in a nice temperate climate where we can grow much more of our own food. My father was a wily old Yorkshireman, and one of the things he said to me was, "There's no so queer as folk." If you know what that means, basically it means there's nothing as strange as people. And that's true. People are responding to this in the strangest ways. The bureaucrats who are making the regulations and deciding on how things will be handled on a national level are appearing to be more intent on holding back information and holding back resources. They know that something big is coming and they're preparing for it, but they're not helping you to prepare for it. It's a little bit scary, and I want you to be more proactive. Take charge of your own supply chain. If you live in a city and things are getting a little bit tough, get in the car, go to a small town and do a shop in a small town where things haven't been cleared out yet. I troll through YouTube and the internet on a daily basis. I'm picking up snippets of information and filtering them. I've found certain presenters on YouTube who are reliable and knowledgeable, and I'm getting the most important pieces of their information, collating them and bringing them to you so that you don't have to troll through the internet to find correct information. It's all in one place at Tiny House and Off-Grid Resources. Please keep checking in. Have a look at my videos. There'll be a video every couple of days while this is going on as more news becomes available. And I'll be giving you a little bit of advice and just saying what I would do. Someone who's lived off-grid for the last 20 years. There's no guarantees that what I'm saying is right. It's just that the people that I'm getting the information from have proven themselves to me in the past to be reliable with their information, and I'm passing that on to you. So be careful out there. Stop shaking hands. No hugs and kisses. Do look at pulling your kids out of school if things get worse. And let's work together and try and make this as comfortable as possible. Take care.